It finally happened. I don't take joy in anyone's unemployment, but the 49ers finally did the damn thing and put Jake Moody out of his misery. What is good, everybody? Rob Stats Carrera here with you. Sorry for the abridged opening. I got too excited. Too excited because, as you see on the screen, Jake Moody is no longer a San Francisco 49er. And it took a long time. It took too long, quite frankly. It never should have come to this, but it did. And now the Niners are in the kicking shuffle, as they say, which is not a place that you want to live, quite frankly. But look, it had to be done, okay? It had to be done. And for maybe not, it's not going to be the final time, but this is the one we wanted to hear, so I'm going to do it. Kicker update. The next 49ers kicker is not going to miss a 27-yard field goal next week, okay? I'm sorry. He's just not going to do it. And they had to do this move. And I wish Jake Moody well, okay? I talked to him at the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. He seemed like a perfectly nice guy. He's never done anything off the field or anything like that. This move just had to happen for him and the team. Tons of kickers have stunk with their first team. Tons. They've gone on to other teams and had fine careers, and that could easily be Jake Moody. It just wasn't going to happen here, ever. It just wasn't going to happen here. And there was issues all over the place on special teams. There had to be issues in the locker room. There had to be. You can't have guys busting their ass and you talk about the standard, and then you don't cut this guy when he's not living up to the standard. So it just, for a ton of reasons, it had to be done. And I wish Jake Moody well again. I'm not, I don't want to make it seem like I'm so happy that, he's fired, that I'm taking joy in his firing or his release. I'm taking joy in the fact that the 49ers are not going to put him through this anymore and us through this anymore. That's what I'm taking joy in. The fact that he can move on and take the next step towards a successful career. And now the 49ers don't have to have this. Just, let's be honest, it was a dark cloud. It was a dark cloud hanging over them as my phone goes into sleep mode. Thank you very much. They just couldn't go through this anymore. It had to end, and it finally did. And I see your comments in the chat. Monkey Boy 12th really wanted him to work for us, but definitely got more than his fair shake at it. Exactly. Rob D. Hope he finds a spot somewhere and does well. A lot of this. Mike Rotunda, thank God. Bay Marin says he'll be missed. By none. I see what you did there. He'll be missed by none. I see that the comments separated it a little bit. Jason 49er 77. Hate to see someone lose their job. I mean, the guy had a family and bills, but it had to be done. Exactly. No one, we wanted Jake Moody gone, yes, but it's weird to say, like, we're not happy that he's fired. We're happy that he's not kicking for the 49ers anymore, if that makes sense. But it just didn't. Like, there was no explanation for why the 49ers wanted to stick with him. He had never earned that kind of loyalty and respect, right? It's, it's not George Kittle that we're talking about, or Trent Williams, or Kyle Juszczyk. Like, he had never shown himself to be a dependable kicker. And you can sit there and say, well, they picked him in the third round. It was just beyond its usefulness. I'm sorry. It just had to be gone. Sam Mateo says, watch him be re-signed to the practice squad, though. Any news on who's being signed? Would have been nice to get Matt Prater. I guess Greg Joseph. I would assume it's Greg Joseph. They had the quote-unquote kicking competition. That really wasn't a competition because Jake Moody lost it and Greg Joseph won it, and they cut Greg Joseph anyway. So he's probably the one. I don't know. I mean, the 49ers signed an undrafted kicker after the draft. I don't know what happened to that guy. I don't even remember his name. But literally anyone. And let's be honest, if the 49ers go out against the Saints and whoever their new kicker misses, if he misses, I'm not going to be nearly as mad, right? Because at least they were trying. At least they were trying to address this glaring, obvious problem. So if the new guy misses, I'll be frustrated because, obviously I want the new kicker to make all the kicks. But at least it's not the same thing, right? When Jake Moody lined up for that 27-yarder on Sunday, you knew he was missing it. You knew he was missing it. The confidence was gone. And so if they get a new guy and he's not good, get rid of that new guy and bring somebody else in. I said this on local news in San Francisco, and I'll say it again here. Kicking is like dating, okay? It is better to give 20 different people a chance than it is to give the wrong person 20 chances. And the Niners had run out of chances to give Jake Moody. They had been continually, well, I could fix him. I'm going to fix the wind up and, I'll teach him to do the dishes and, all that. No, when somebody proves they aren't the person, you just have to move on from them. And the 49ers finally did it. And I'm glad because it just made them look ridiculous, quite frankly. It did. There was just no excuse for it. Diego, YouTube channel member, says, thank you for this level-headed comment, Rob. People need to learn to comment on the actions, but not on the person. Definitely don't attack them personally or on social media. Exactly. Like, do you think Jake Moody doesn't know that he has sucked? Of course he does. He doesn't want to suck. He's putting every ounce of his everything into being good, and he's failing, and that hurts, man. He knows that. He knows. He sees the helmets thrown on the sideline. We don't need to twist the knife with Jake Moody. Trust me. He's going through it enough. Like, we can be adult about this. Gabriel says, let this be a lesson learned. You never draft a kicker in the third round. I agree. I'm very curious to see who the replacement is. A lot of people are asking who is coming, who is the replacement going to be. I don't know. But bottom line is today, the 49ers got better. They just did. Special teams was the weakest part of their team. They have a lot to clean up. We saw that on Sunday. There were multiple penalties on returns. Their kick coverage was not particularly great. Seattle almost broke a kickoff return for a touchdown at one point. It was like a shoestring tackle that stopped it. They've got to clean up special teams, and this is part of it. And if you are trying to establish this culture on special teams, right, you're trying to say it's not a punishment, and there's a standard here that goes along with that, and we need to raise the level of play and all this stuff. Well, this is it. You've got to walk the walk. You can't just talk the talk. And this sends a message to everybody. Hey, you know what? No sacred cows here. Let's go. And I'm glad they did. Gabe says, I wouldn't be surprised if they called up Greg Zuerlein. That's true because Brant Boyer was with the Jets. Maybe there's a Jets connection there. I have no idea. Jason 49er77 says, another miss by the Lynch Shanahan regime. They can't draft for bleep. They do draft. I mean, let's not say that. They have a lot of, look at their draft class this year, for example. I mean, hell, they plucked Marquise Siegel out of the 5th round. He was the starter, and he was phenomenal in week 1. So let's not say that. I'm just going to take a quick look around and see what the 49ers are saying, if anything, about who they could bring in. I'm scrolling through. You could see me scrolling through on the phone. Obviously, everyone's using the same picture of Jake Moody in their release photo. You know, the Falcons were struggling with their kicker, and they signed Parker Romo to the practice squad. So I almost wonder if the 49ers were like, you know what? Like, hey, if we're going to do this, we got to do it because the free agent kickers that are out there are coming off the board. So I don't see anything. Let's just see really quick. No, what do I want to go to? I want to go to my mentions. There we go. Anything else happening with the kicker? Doesn't seem like it. Oh, people are dunking on David Lombardi because of his famous Jake Moody's accepting your apologies tweet. That's always good. And by the way, I agree with Diego Figueroa, who says no Justin Tucker. First of all, he's suspended, I think, for a variety of weeks. Second of all, no, we don't need. He wasn't good as a kicker anyway. Then there's all the off the field stuff. I want no part of that whatsoever. No part of Justin Tucker. Sorry. There are other kickers out there that can be better and that don't have off the field baggage. And the last thing you want to do is add off the field baggage for a kicker. No, thank you. All right. I don't seem to see any other news about the kicker and who they potentially might be bringing in. If I do, if you see it in the chat, let me know. But it just had to happen. And just think of the reaction. Look, obviously, anyone that knows Jake Moody personally in the locker room, I'm sure they're sad for him. But they have to think, hey, you know what? We got better. We needed to do this. It just had to happen. I don't mean to keep repeating myself over and over again, but Jake Moody had to go. And if the new person shows up and they're not good, cut them and bring in somebody else. That's the way kickers are. It's just the way kickers are. Is it nice to have a guy for 15 years? Sure. But that's generally not how it goes. Those guys are few and far between. And just think back to last year, right? with the 49ers. Jake Moody gets hurt, and so the 49ers are forced to sign a variety of kickers, actually, because not only did Jake Moody get hurt, but a bunch of kickers got hurt for the team. They brought in Matthew Wright at one point. I believe he immediately got hurt. Then they brought in the guy from Green Bay. What's his? Anders Carlson, I think was his name. And he came in and he made all his field goals. I think he missed one extra point, but I believe between the two of them, that was the only kick that was missed by the Jake Moody replacements last year. So, yeah, even if you do have to sort of play the kicker shuffle, like the guys are out there. The guys are out there. And I just think for the 49ers, like you shield yourself from a lot of unnecessary criticism by doing this. So it was smart to do. It shouldn't have taken this long. We got lucky that the Jake Moody misses, which we all knew were coming this year. Let's be honest. As soon as he ended the preseason on the roster, we all knew this was going to be a thing that popped up again, but it didn't cost him a win, right? He was as shaky as you can be in week one, and they still won the game. So you got the outcome that we all wanted without it costing you in the standings, which is huge. And should it have come to this? No. Did the 49ers get super lucky that it didn't cost them a win? Absolutely it did. But this is the best case scenario, considering that Moody made the team coming out of training camp. Eric Wallace says, stats and folks, huge Seahawks fan here. Congrats to you all. That's funny. Jay Cruz 49. Okay, this is a point that I think is relevant. Jay Cruz says, watch Moody go to the Rams or Seattle or some other rival and have a great 15-year career. He may. That may be a thing. And I think that was part of the 49ers thinking in keeping him so long, is that we really believe in this guy and we think eventually he could have a good career down the road. But it was never going to happen in San Francisco. And you couldn't risk games in the meantime, right? Maybe they're right. Maybe Jake Moody would be awesome 2 years from now, 3 years from now. But if he's costing you games in the meantime, so what? Right? And the 49ers certainly are not in a position this year where they could afford to gamble with that kicking. So it doesn't matter what Jake Moody does this from this point forward. It matters is what he was going to do with the 49ers. And clearly he had shown you. He had shown you that it just wasn't going to work out here. And there's no shame in that. Players don't work out all the time. And the 49ers certainly were never a team that clung to their mistakes, right? Trey Sermon, get out of town. Ty Davis-Price, get out of town. Danny Gray, get out of town. Man, those third-round picks. Trey Lance, the guy they gave up 3 first-round picks for, get out of town after 4 career starts. They didn't fall victim to the sunk cost fallacy. But for some reason with Jake Moody, they hung on to him like he was the one ring from Lord of the Rings until today. So it doesn't matter what Jake Moody does 15 years from now. If the 49ers get a kicker that's just leaving the league average, that's fine, because they didn't have that with Jake Moody, and he was never going to be that. So I think sometimes we have a habit as 49er fans of, well, we let this person go and they have success elsewhere, so that hurts us. It only hurts us if the replacement isn't any good. Like, for example, a lot of people were saying, oh, Jordan Mason last night. Look at Jordan Mason. I wish we had Jordan Mason. Like, if Brian Robinson and Jordan James are just as good, we're fine. It doesn't matter if Jordan Mason runs for 2,000 yards in Minnesota. So I think we need to keep that in mind. So don't worry about the kicker and what Jake Moody does from this point on. Doesn't matter. All you have to worry about if you're the 49ers is who are you getting to come in and how do they perform? And if they don't perform well, you get rid of them and you bring in somebody else. That's the other part of this. You know, Tim Kawakami has spent a lot of time talking about, well, Kyle Shanahan didn't want to have to think about a kicker. If you sign somebody and they're awful, you can't then stick with them the way you stuck with Jake Moody. You got to get rid of them. You got to get them out of Dodge and out of town, and then you bring in somebody else. And now we don't know if Shanahan's going to do that. And to be clear, I'm not talking about like, oh, you bring in a replacement, he misses one kick, you get rid of him. No. But if he misses a 27-yard kick as badly as Jake Moody missed it, yeah. Or if he's kicking the ball out of bounds constantly on the kickoffs, yeah, then you have to be flexible and you have to think about it. You absolutely have to think about it. And I like the fact, I have to say this too. Kyle Shanahan, remember, after the game, sort of said there's no question Jake Moody's going to be the kicker. He didn't cut Jake Moody from the podium. And I give him credit for that because a lot of people wanted him to. And he didn't need to do that. There's a right way and a wrong way to do this stuff, and he did it the right way. And I think that's the reason why Kyle Shanahan is respected among players, because he does things the right way. He didn't embarrass Jake Moody like that. So good on him. Now, I'm seeing a little bit of breaking news apart from Jake Moody. According to Adam Schefter of ESPN, and I don't know why my phone is not updating on the screen, but the 49ers are putting George Kittle on injured reserve. So that in the injured hamstring obviously is a big deal for Kittle. He is now going to miss the next 4 games. So that is not something obviously that we were hoping for. We knew he was going to be out multiple weeks, but now we get the official word. So that means no George Kittle against the Saints, no George Kittle against the Cardinals, no George Kittle against the Jaguars, and no George Kittle against the Rams. And I believe that's a Thursday night game. That stinks. That hurts. No George Kittle against the Rams is a bummer because they need all the good players they can get. That's one of the tougher games on their schedule. It's a division game, obviously. So that is devastating, quite frankly. I know Jake Taun just had a good game and a nice catch, and that's all cool, but it is a bummer. So that is breaking news that just happened. No George Kittle, and it's really frustrating because he looked so good, right, in preseason, and he looked so good even in the limited amount he played in the opener. He looked fantastic. They went right to him in the red zone. They had a lot of designed plays for George Kittle, but obviously the pulled hamstring is going to be a thing. They clearly looked like they were going to feature him a lot, and maybe he can come back, and hopefully he can come back and be just as good, just as strong, but it really stings. It really stings that he's not going to be out for that Rams game. Oh, man, what a difference in feeling from worried about the team to in the preseason. Then it seems like they get healthy, right? Everybody on the 53-man roster practiced at one point before the first game. They go out in the first game, and then immediately, bam, George Kittle gets hurt. Bam, Juwan Jennings gets hurt. Niners pull out a win. Hey, we're really happy. And then we immediately find out, bam, Brock Purdy's got a hurt shoulder. Brock Purdy's got a hurt toe. He may not play. Now we know George Kittle's going on injured reserve. And it's crazy how the swings of this season, the emotion of this season changes that quickly, that fast. And now we go into New Orleans with no George Kittle. Maybe no Juwan Jennings, we don't know. Maybe no Brock Purdy, we don't know. And suddenly that game that looked really easy when the schedule came out feels completely different at this point. Does it not? To me, it does. I'm surprised the chat is still talking about Jake Moody. That is surprising to me. I mean, George Kittle is going on IR. It just goes to show the level of frustration that 49ers fans had with the kicker. It goes to show, like, your best offensive player is going on injured reserve and people don't care. You just want to know about the kicker. And we're celebrating that. Seek Truth 778. Good news by Moody. Bad news is losing Kittle. Damn. Diego Figueroa says, we should be good for the first 3 games without Kittle, but the Rams on Thursday Night Football, oof. Yeah, it's hard to say that. It depends on a hard mix of other factors, right? Who else is going to be out there? We don't know. But look, this is one of the benefits of having the schedule that the 49ers have, is it makes it a little easier to sustain these kind of injuries. Now, again, nothing is guaranteed, all that stuff, but you certainly feel a lot better about having to face the Saints with no George Kittle than you do if you were facing, say, the Bills, right? Like, slightly different there. So, yeah, the schedule helps in that instance, but it's not going to be easy, especially with a backup quarterback out there, especially in the running game. I think that Kittle helped out in the run game so much. We did a film breakdown last week with Johnny Dell talking about the difference in the 2 games against the Seahawks last year, and the difference was George Kittle in the running game. They won the game he was there. They lost the game he wasn't. So we'll see ultimately how it plays out with George and with the offense. Man, Kyle Shanahan's going to be put to the test early in this season. That is for sure. Francisco says we could steal a few of the first games without Kittle, and then the rest of the schedule is easier. We'll be fine. Rob D says, we had a good 10 minutes before getting the bad news. Yeah, I hear you. Wedge says, Rob, are you ready for the Mac attack this weekend? I'll say this. Brock is tough, man. Brock is tough as hell. If there's any way he could be out there, he will. Jennifer Lee Chan said, let's see. Nick Wagner says, with a Thursday night against the Rams in week 5, the Niners will play 4 games between Sunday and October 2nd, which means Kittle's earliest return would be October 12th against Tampa Bay. You know George has to be gutted because he looked so good. And he wants to be out there, especially in that Rams game. Just brutal. Heineman on Twitch says, do you think they sign Ross Dwelly? I don't know. They love to sign Ross Dwelly, so it's entirely possible. Maybe they will sign Ross Dwelly. I couldn't tell you. Man, if they can pull off a win in New Orleans, whoo boy, I'll say this. This is even more pressure on Robert Saleh, right? The defense looked great against Seattle. They gave up only 230 yards in week 1 against Seattle. And he's going to have to do it again because you can't depend on the 49ers to score a lot of points in this game. We're going to need another lockdown performance by Saleh's defense for sure. Baziman says, literally no need to play with Brock's health in week 2. Just start Jones and make sure Brock gets fully healthy for the season. It's something you have to consider if Brock is sort of on the fence, right? And that's another reason why banking this win against Seattle is pretty good. You want to know in the division, too. You got that division win. If Brock has an injury that's like, he's maybe 50-50, he could gut it out. I don't know. Do you say, you know what? We brought Mac Jones in here for a reason. We'll try and gut it out with Mac Jones. If we win, great. If we don't, we're willing to sacrifice that in order to keep Brock healthy, to maximize Brock's chances of feeling good beyond week 2. Let's be honest. We all know the offensive line. Quarterback's probably going to take some hits. You're playing on turf again, too, second week in a row. I don't know how much that factors in, but it's a reality of the situation. So it'd be interesting to see how they handle that. We'll find out more tomorrow. Obviously, they're off today. Tomorrow they return to practice. We'll see what happens. Niner Faithful said, didn't Kyle say his toe injury is worse than the shoulder? Yes, he did. As a matter of fact,
Brock Purdy hurt his left shoulder and toe. We'll see how this week goes for him.
Kyle, is one of those 2 Purdy injuries more severe than the other, and he in risk of missing a start or 2?
I'd probably say the toe's worse than the shoulder.
And what about his availability this week?
Yeah, we're not sure. We got to see how it heals and how the week goes on it.
With Brock's toe, is that a turf toe injury?
Just toe. That's all I got here.
That's all I got here. Just toe. He didn't want to say. I know, Wedge, you asked if it's turf toe. We don't know. Who knows? I know Johnny Dell said he thinks that Jake Brendel stepped on Brock Purdy and stepped on his foot, which is, that happens a few times a year with offensive linemen and quarterbacks. I don't know what the injury is. We'll see. Is it a broken toe? I mean, it could be anything, right? It could be turf toe. Could be a broken toe. Could be something with a ligament, maybe. Could be a bad laceration if somehow his toe was cut. We have no idea what the actual injury is. We'll see. We'll have to wait and see. But Niners got some big injury questions. They got rid of the biggest question on the team with Jake Moody now being gone. But this George Kittle thing is huge news. George Kittle is a massive part of the offense. I don't have to tell all of you, obviously. He's going to miss that Rams game. That is a killer. And he's going to miss the Cardinals game. That's 2 division games. I forgot about the Cardinals in week 3. You're missing 2 division games. We know, I've said all along, I think the division is going to come down to whatever NFC West team has the best record in those games. So now you're going down a massive, massive asset. Braden Willis. Maybe they're calling up Braden Willis. Speaking of picks that hasn't worked out so far for the 49ers, maybe he can finally step up and do something. But man, oh man, the test is coming early for the 49ers. Ricky Pearsall, going to put a lot more on your plate. Robert Saleh, we need your defense to grow up really, really fast. And Christian McCaffrey, guess what? If you thought we were going to have to ease you into this season, no, that is not going to be the case. Expect a healthy dose of Christian McCaffrey. Expect a healthy dose of Ricky Pearsall. Kendrick Bourne, great. You've been back for 30 seconds. We need you out there, man. We need you out there. And boy, oh boy, does that Demarcus Robinson suspension loom large now. They could really use just a reliable, dependable player. He looked like he could be that for the 49ers. Obviously, he's got the suspension, but man, we got to get through these weeks, man. We're going to need people out there. And I know Tim Kawakami has talked about this, and I'll mention it as well. You never get to the point where everyone is healthy. It's not like, oh, these guys are injured now, but when they come back, everyone else will be healthy and we're good. Guys are shuffling into the lineup, in and out of the lineup all year long. So it's never just the cavalry comes, It's never just the cavalry comes and everything is good. You're going to have to deal with the shuffling all year long. So we'll see what the 49ers ultimately do. Again, I'm just scanning quickly. No word yet on what the Niners are doing at kicker. They'll probably work out guys today and sign somebody this afternoon. But that is the news of the day. Kittle on IR and Jake Moody gone, quite frankly. Coming back in 1 sec. Just want to take a quick break for this word from Sleeper.
Sleeper is the #1 fantasy sports app. It pays to know sports. Pick more or less on top players. Your first pick is on us, so start winning now. Play in Texas, Georgia, Minnesota, and 27 more states. Pick anytime across all sports, pregame or live. Over 10 million players are already on Sleeper. Make your picks count. Score up to 1,000 times your cash. Join today. Get up to $100 credit using code GSPE. Call your shot on Sleeper. Download now.
Matt Barrows tweeted, imagine practice squad or Braden Willis will fill Kittle's spot on the 53-man roster. Mac Jones, who could start on Sunday, had a good rapport with Willis in training camp. God help us if we're depending on the Mac Jones, Braden Willis rapport in week 2. Oh, man. That's not a place I want to live. I'll tell you that right now. That is not a place I want to live. And again, we don't know for sure if Brock Purdy's definitely out yet, right? Let's see if he practices on Wednesday. Let's see if he practices on Thursday. Wednesday is traditionally like the heavy practice for the 49ers. Thursday is a lighter practice, and then they do the walkthrough on Friday. But man, this is not a place I want it to be. Braden Willis and Mac Jones. This has got like the Trent Taylor, vibes to it over and over again. Trent Taylor, Jimmy Garoppolo looked really good in camp, and then they would get out there in the regular season and not do anything. No. Jeff Deeney, with a good tweet, puts this in perspective about Jake Moody. This had to happen. Holding out hope he was going to turn it around was not going to end with a positive outcome. Moody is 6 for his last 16 attempts from 40-plus yards. That's just 37.5%. And he's 12 for his last 23 overall. That's 52.2%. You couldn't have it. You couldn't have a guy who literally had no idea where the ball was going as soon as he swung his leg. It's just no other position you would tolerate complete uncertainty half the time they're out there. Matt Prater shows up for the Buffalo Bills and just immediately is kicking game-winning field goals. And they were like, oh, is it, you're off the couch and you're kicking a game-winning field goal. And I think he said something like, it's not that hard. You just have to swing your leg. Like, yeah, man. Yeah. And, I like this tweet from our own Johnny Dell, who just highlights the 2023 draft class. Jair Brown, Jake Moody, Cam Latu, Darrell Luter, Robert Beal, D. Winters, Braden Willis, Ronnie Bell, and Jalen Graham. Now, look, the D. Winters pick is certainly looking a lot better right now. He looked phenomenal out there Sunday. That looks good. But Jair Brown, his future is very cloudy at best. Robert Beal wasn't even active for the game. Yeah. Ooh, man. Thank God the 49ers have had some better drafts since then. I'll say that because that was ugly. UGLY ugly. Not that Moody could have saved it on his own anyway. Like, it wouldn't have been that much better of a draft class if Jake Moody ended up being a good kicker, but it just throws into sharp relief. Some head-scratching decisions from the 49ers in the draft. I mean, remember, Kyle Shanahan talked about this, like, oh, well, our team was so good. We didn't have any other openings on the team except kicker that we took in the 3rd round. It was like, dude, that is a terrible mindset to go into. Waltony 101 on Twitch will always have the memories of his preseason game winner against the Raiders. Yeah, that was going to turn his career around. Remember that? Brant Boyer said that could turn his whole career around. 2 weeks later, he's off the team. And honestly, if you're Jake Moody, I think you're probably more relieved than anything else, right? Because you knew it was potentially coming. Every missed kick potentially could cost you your job, and you're just so worried about it, and you're stressing and you're pressing and you're doing everything in your power to try and prevent that. And sometimes you just need somebody to put you out of your misery. And finally, I'm sure they called him into the office and Kyle was like, dude, we got to let you go. And he was probably just like, finally. I'm sure he was sad, obviously, but I'm sure part of him was like, you know what? He knew. He had to know. He had to know. And I bet it was probably relief. I've been laid off before. I know what it's like. I got laid off from NBC Sports when COVID hit in 2020. And that job was killing me. I was making good money, but the job was literally killing me. I was getting 3 hours of sleep a night. It was very frustrating at times. But I was never going to leave because I was making such good money. And when I finally got laid off, I was sad and scared for sure for the future. But there was part of me that was like, thank God, because I wanted to leave, but the money was too good and I was never going to do it. And I was glad that the choice was made for me. And I think with Jake Moody, it's probably some of the same thing. Mr. J says, who are the best kickers available in the free agent market? Honestly, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But here's the thing. You don't necessarily need to go out there and sign a name that you've heard before. You don't need to go sign, I don't even know if Greg Zerline is still active or not, but like he's a name that I know. There are guys out there you've never heard of that can do a better job than the 50% essentially that Jake Moody was at for the last few times he was out there. There are names that you never know. So if they sign somebody and you're like, oh, who the hell is that? I never heard. Don't worry. Who cares? Kickers are like that all the time. Nobody knew Brandon Aubrey from the Cowboys before he got out there, right? And he's drilling field goals left, right, and center. Nobody knew Cam Little for the Jags. He blasts. So what was it? What did he make? Was it 70? Did he make in the preseason? It's just some absurd number. I heard I did the Pro Football Insiders football show. By the way, we have a new NFL show. I'm with the Pro Football Insiders. They, of course, carry our podcast here at the Gold Standard. And we do an NFL show once a week now. And during that show, one of the hosts brought up the fact that a 50-yard field goal is now like an 85% make by kickers. So it's not just the rarity that it was in the past. It's become much more of a routine thing, and you need to have a guy that can do that routinely. So, right. Niner Faithful says Matt Prater. So here's the thing. Matt Prater was not the Bills' regular kicker. They grabbed him because of Bass got hurt. So if Bass is good to go, they're going to cut Prater. He could eventually be kicking for the 49ers. Again, whoever it is, Greg Joseph, I don't care. It just needed to be somebody different. So I haven't seen anything yet. Again, they're probably going to work guys out today. So we'll probably hear Jason and Steph are going to be live 5 p.m. Pacific time on the channel. I would not be shocked if by the time they're on the air, we know who the new kicker is. Obey Banksy says, finally, they are listening to the fans. Real Goat 16. Put up flyers at Jed's soccer practices. Kicker wanted. That's funny. I was saying we had to organize, right? We had to figure it out and organize because it had to change, and finally it has changed. Boyette says, can we scoop Brandon Aubrey up from the Cowboys? Look, I think we've used all the draft capital we need to on kickers at this point, right? We don't need to spend any more. Brandon Jones says, title of this season, The Experiments. There's an element to that, right? This is a transition year for the 49ers. So, yeah, I think that's slightly accurate. Jason 49er77 says, stats, is it fair to say Moody was the 21st century version of Mike Kofer? Man, there's a deep cut. Mike Kofer. I just remember when Mike Kofer would miss, I think it was Chris Berman used to say, Mike Kofer coughs it up for the 49ers. God, sorry. That was just a flat. I didn't expect to go Mike Kofer references on the show, but there you go. And look, I've seen some bad 49ers kickers. Jose Cortez was terrible for the 49ers back in the day. And I'm not saying that this next guy is going to be great, but I bet you even if he's not good, he'll still be better than Jake Moody was. And I don't mean to say that to knock Jake Moody. I just mean to say that was the level of performance that we were dealing with. Waltony 101 says, as a Brit, I don't think we're too far away from seeing ex-soccer pros trying to become kickers. Well, that was Brandon Aubrey. And the history of the NFL is full of kickers that have soccer backgrounds. So, I mean, if you can kick, you can. Honestly, I feel like if you can kick, you can kick. There's some adjustments you have to make. I'm not saying you could just walk off a pitch and come onto the NFL field and start drilling field goals. If you got to work at it. Obviously, there's training that has to take place, but I feel like you could do it. And I don't I don't understand why it's so hard to find a kicker. I really don't. To me, drafting guys is hard, right? Because you don't know how college performance is going to translate to the NFL because the guys are bigger, stronger, faster in the NFL. The coaches are better. Everything is faster, all that stuff. But none of that applies to kicking. The uprights are the same height. The uprights are the same distance apart. It's not like the protections for the kick blocking are that different from college to the pros. It should be the easiest thing to find. Does the guy make the kicks? Yes or no? Find the guy with the best kick percentage. That's where I would start. And I would say, all right, this guy's the best kicker in college football that's available. Now you go look at his kicks. How far are they? Is he kicking all 20-yarders and that's why his percentage is so good? You got to go to the film, right? Watch his kicks. What do they look like? How many are from distance? Are they really shaky or is he drilling it right down the middle every time? Is he kicking in weather? Is he kicking in wind, right? All that stuff. But it's all objective. It's not subjective. It's a pass-fail business, man. Just watch it and pick that guy. It really doesn't seem like it should be this difficult. I feel like, honestly, if you gave me the job right now, I could go find you a guy. If you told me no more podcasts, Rob, you go out there, search the country, find the next kicker of the 49ers, I think I could do it for you. And I bet you I could do it for you like in a week. I really don't think it's that hard. I just don't think teams invest that much into it, honestly. So we'll see who they get. Tony says the University of Hawaii has a freshman kicker from Japan who's made 2 clutch kicks, and that dude taught himself how to kick from YouTube. Right? Like, it's a specialized skill. I'm not saying it's easy, but I do think it's something that can be learned and perfected and improved. And again, I just think that there's no reason they shouldn't be able to find a competent kicker, and we'll see if they do. And hopefully they do. And what a crazy scenario it would be if next week's game comes down to a last-second kick by a 49er kicker. And I'll say this, if it does and that kicker misses it, nobody out there is going to say, well, Moody would have made that kick, right? That would be the only solace that we could take from it. But we'll see. We'll find out together. And obviously, again, if there are news, Jason and Steph will be live later tonight on the channel, 5 p.m. Pacific time. We'll go over all of that. Thank you for watching, everybody. Appreciate it. Let's just do it one more time. Kicker update. Jake Moody gone. George Kittle on IR. Big day for the 49ers.